Hello, I'm Arman Khodaei, a 25-year-old individual with high-function autism. Today's video is called How to Empower Someone with Autism. So I'm going to discuss how to empower someone with autism and how to disempower them as well. And I'm going to use examples from my own life and also some made-up examples. So how to empower someone with autism. When we ourselves feel disempowered, as a parent, say you feel weak, you feel things are out of control, that you have no control over your child's life because you want to have control over their life, because you want them to be what you perceive to be acceptable. When your family, your friends, the teachers, the people at the restaurant, when everybody gives you funny looks, when you see on TV and you read about benchmarks and milestones and all that kind of stuff. And your child just isn't performing to what everybody says is acceptable, you start to feel as if you have no control sometimes. And when we give up our control to outside circumstances, to what we read in books, to what family says, what friends says, what teachers say, whatever, when we give up our control, we disempower ourselves, and then we try to control the autistic child. When that happens, we become disempowered. When I say we, I'm talking about you parents, because I'm not a parent of an autistic child because I have autism. But so that is what happens. And then, you try to control the child's behavior without understanding the child. You understand what everybody else is like, but you don't understand what's going on in your child's mind. And I actually recommend that you go and watch one of my latest videos, Insights from Autistic: The Power of Violence. Essentially, when you start disbelieving in your child, when you tell them that they're not normal, or when you start saying disempowering words, when you tell them that they're stupid or they can't achieve their dreams or whatever it is, you're performing a mental violence on them. And usually, actually, mental violence is the most profound violence you can inflict on someone. People consider, punching, hitting, shooting at people to be very violent acts. And you can shoot somebody in the head and that they're dead. And yet, at the same time, you can go up to somebody, tell them that they're an absolute pathetic piece of crap, that they mean nothing to society, that all their work is absolute utter garbage, that etc., etc., etc. You can say all these disempowering words. And you know what that is? That's a way of killing somebody. You might not shoot them in the head and they might not die today, but inside, they die. If they're not a very strong person or they can't regain their composure, you just kill that person. And then, now this is going to go back to autism, I assure you. And then that person is dead on the inside. And who knows what happens? They start to have financial problems, relationship problems, because they are now repeating back in their head what you told them. Even a stranger has this power on us. A random stranger could go up and say all these horrible things, and if we're not very strong, we're going to repeat in our head over and over what that stranger says. Now imagine the impact that a parent has on their child with certain words, and the child repeats over and over and over again those words. We start to kill that person, and that disempowers them. There is a such thing as mental violence, and we just don't realize it oftentimes when we're performing it. And when we, sometimes it even happens like a friend says, "Oh, I'm going to become an actor," and you're like, "Oh," to your friend, you're like, I don't know about becoming an actor. Many of them don't make it far." You start putting the doubts in their head. When you start putting doubts in other people's heads, you're performing a mental violence on that person because you have no clue what that person is capable of. Zilch, nada. You might see what they've done in the past, But you do not know what happens when someone applies themselves to something. Maybe it is truly their dream. You don't know. That one person might become an extra all their life in a movie, or they might become the next Brad Pitt. This could even be true with someone with autism. Even if they're very low on the spectrum, perhaps that dream of someday becoming an actor motivates them to overcome their autism. It could very well happen. They could potentially be nonverbal, and that desire, that burning desire in them, could potentially bring out the best in them. As impossible as it sounds, it is possible. There is absolutely nothing that is not possible in this world, as long as one believes in it, and it is truly their desire. But when we conflict a mental violence on that, we're telling them it's not possible because we refuse to see it as being possible. But that comes from ourselves, from our own insecurities, because of what we tell ourselves. So we told ourselves something because other people said that to ourselves, and then we project that onto somebody else, and we ruin a potential future for them. I'll give you a recent example in my life. There are also examples I can go from my childhood, but I'm going to go with a more recent example because it really bothers me because it actually kind of happened yesterday. But this wasn't actually something that happened yesterday, but I'm going to give you, my dad has always had in my opinion, because of my dad, I have not reached my full potential because of, whatever reasons. When I was 21, I decided I was going to run for city council in the city of Upland. I had no money. I was 21. The second youngest person was 42, so he was twice my age. My name ended up being last on the ballot, but I actually got my name onto the ballot with no help whatsoever. I had to go and get all the signatures myself to get my name onto the ballot. I went door to door doing that. And my dad, when I told him about this running for, he didn't vote for me. He laughed at me. He said, "Oh, ha ha ha! It's going to be a learning experience, And because and he said other things that made me feel bad, and I did not give it 100% my best because I said, okay, my dad is right, whatever. I can't remember everything else my dad said, but he said other things, and it disempowered me. But I did attend the debate. I put some effort into it, but not as much as I could have, and I got 1,500 votes. So I must have done something right. But because of my dad's lack of faith in me, it disempowered me. I'm going to actually give you some more examples, but because of my strength, and because I know I'm a good writer, and because I know I have a book that you guys want to read, I've not given up on it. But constantly, my dad, my dad's, I have my memoir, A Boy in Wonderland, that I've been working on. It talks about my inner thoughts dealing with autism throughout from my childhood to now. And my dad just says, oh, it's just another book. It might just be another book, but to me, this is something I put a lot of time, effort. I put myself in the book. It's my memoir. I put my personal thoughts. This isn't just something that, it might just be another book on the bookshelf to other people, but to me, it's a milestone in my life. It's an achievement. That's like saying, to someone that graduates college, oh, it's just a piece of paper. Who cares that you graduated? So what? And that's essentially his attitude. Yesterday my dad and I was talking about marketing my book. He's like, "Oh, you're still messing around with that book?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm now talking about marketing my book." And you're insulting me for marketing, for wanting to actually try to get my book out there into people's hands? Yeah, he hasn't even read it yet. It's like, geez, and that wasn't the only thing, my stepmom was saying, that she thought, that my book would be beneficial to people because it offers, a different perspective, the perspective of someone with autism. And she said, I think that could be in some ways more important than other perspectives. And my dad's like, oh, no, it's not. And my dad is right in a way. Everybody's perspective. The parent, the teachers, the doctors. Every perspective is important, and every perspective adds something unique and different. But he's my dad. I think he should be supporting me. So he's disempowering me. But luckily, I really like my book. I love my book. So I believe in my book. So I'm going full head. But As a parent, when you say crap like that to your child, autistic, not autistic, whatever, you are committing mental violence on them, and you have no idea what they can achieve. Your child who's a 5-year-old and says, "I want to grow up to become a fireman someday," and you see that they're not making any friends, say, "Oh, you can't become a fireman," or whatever. You are performing mental violence. So how to empower someone of autism? I talked about the disempowering. Now how to empower them. First of all, try to actually get into their head. Try to join their world. When they're drawing a picture, draw with them. Talk about what they enjoy talking about. Start making plans. Say they want to become a fireman. Start making plans to do that. Say, okay, we need to, you need to do this, this, that, and that. You can do role playing as a fireman. You can actually get other kids to come along. You can actually use this as an opportunity to develop social skills. Maybe it's something even ridiculous. I want to become a Pokemon when I grow up. Well, go get some neighborhood kids and have them act like Pokemon towards each other. Do some role playing. Get some kids involved. Then they enjoy it, like, yes, I'm having so much fun, and then they're interacting with the other kids. The other kids are having a blast. You can get some costumes. You can make it exciting. You have to empower your child. And if possible, like I said, get the other kids involved. Try to make it become a reality. They want to become a writer. You talk about what it takes to become a writer. Get them some paper. Start reading stories to them. Do you want to become an actor? Give them acting classes. Start acting with them. Having them read plays. Get other kids to act in plays with them. They're going to develop social skills if they want to become an actor. Think about that. That they might actually overcome their hurdles. They might actually overcome their autism because of what they want to achieve in their life. The things that they want to do in life can actually be a gateway to help them overcome aspects of their autism that you might see undesirable as a parent. And you can do it in a way that it's beneficial to everybody, that they're happy, you're happy, everybody's happy. You don't need to put them down. What you need to do is you need to find a way to make their reality a reality that both of you can enjoy, a reality that benefits everybody. So you have to find a way to enter that world. You have to find a way to bring them out of that world and make their world part of your world. Don't try to make your world their world. Try to make their world your world. See, we go backwards, like ABA and all this type of stuff. We're doing it backwards. We're trying to make our world their world. We need to try to go into their world and make it part of our world. Integrate it. Meet halfway. So in my other videos, I actually talk about more about how to do that. So I encourage you to go watch my other videos. And I wish you all a most awesome day of awesomeness. Thank you.